Let's move on now to the Baltimore Ravens 2023 season prediction video, where Ryan and I will break down the entire schedule for the Ravens and how well we think they're going to do, what their floor is going to be, what their ceiling is going to be in total wins, and also what their playoff probability will be, in our opinion. But before we do that, if you have not already, smash that subscribe button and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we create new content. Ryan and I, we have a goal of getting to 2,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL season, which means a lot more content coming out between now and September 7th. And also, Ryan and I will be having a fun season-long competition where we will break down and predict every single NFL game and track to see who is right the most. So if you want to follow that competition and also see all of the Ravens predictions, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. And Ryan, let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
So, as I said already, Ryan and I, we predicted the winner of every single NFL game, including all the Ravens games. And some games were ties. So you'll see here with the Ravens schedule. And that kind of helps indicate to us kind of what range that the Ravens are going to fall in this year and how well we think they're going to do. And so we think that they're going to fall in this 6-11 to 10-7 type range, which is going to be putting them on a fringe bubble playoff team. And the reason why it's like that is the AFC is just so deep. And I don't feel like the Ravens, even with some of the offseason acquisitions, I don't feel like they're in the upper echelon of playoff, like lock contenders like the Chiefs and Bills and maybe the Jaguars as well.
Yeah.
But they definitely can make the playoffs when they're able to kind of beat some of those other teams. Like they're going to need to beat the Dolphins this year. They're going to need to be able to beat the Browns. Like those are going to be the games that are must wins for them, just so they can get not only then like the better record than them potentially, but also the tiebreaker as well. And I think that's going to kind of a good indicator to me on where they're going to fall is actually this conference record here. They're 3-5-4 based off the schedule that we presented here. And so all their ties are going to be that we have are all in the AFC, and they're all going to be against teams that are going to be other fringe playoff bubble teams, like the Titans right here in London in Week 6. So those games are going to be crucial. It's going to be fascinating to watch. They're one of the more fascinating teams coming into this season, just adding Odell Beckham, Lamar Jackson's offseason fiasco, so to say, and then nice big payday. And so I'm sure it must have been very stressful for him during that time. They did lose some pieces on defense, but they were older pieces. The youth that they've drafted and signed, are they going to be able to step up and kind of be the dominant Ravens defense that we're used to seeing? All those storylines is going to really make for an interesting Baltimore season.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was going to mention, kind of how we came to this conclusion. And like you said, the AFC is very competitive. They did lose some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. They also lost Ben Powers on that offensive line.
Yeah.
Another one, too, is they did they're not running – I think it was Greg Roman. He was there before, and they now have a new offensive coordinator where they're going to want to throw – sorry. They've said that they want to throw the ball more and run a little bit more of a traditional, like, passing set. And I think that's a bit of a mistake with Lamar Jackson. I think you want to utilize his ability to move as much as possible instead of just having him do 5, 7, 9 step drops in the pocket. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But they're in a really tough division, and as you can see, they have a pretty good start against a pretty easy start against the Texans, but then they have to go to Cincinnati, who's just had their number lately, then Indianapolis, and then 2 more away division games against the Browns and Steelers. Tennessee playing the Tennessee Titans in London. Those games are always a crapshoot in London. It really just comes down to who has a better roster and who's able to make more single plays. And then we do have them beating the Lions, and if you follow this channel, you know that the Lions are one of our favorite teams this year. So that's a big win. But then as it kind of comes down the stretch, the schedule just keeps getting tougher for them. Tough game against the Browns. Then they play the Bengals again, who, like I said earlier, have their number. Then they have to go to the Chargers. Then they play the Rams. Jags is a really tough team. 49ers, really tough team. Dolphins, also a really tough team. And then the Steelers, as everyone knows, also a really tough team. So they start out pretty well, but they have a gauntlet coming down the stretch that just going to be really hard for them to compete with.
Well, and this to me, I think, really indicates how deep the AFC is. It's like starting with week 9, and so I know it's a Seahawks game, but they're a playoff contender. But then they have a, you can argue, a 2-week break, so to say, week 13 and 14. I don't think the Rams are going to be super competitive, and then the Ravens also coming off a bye. But every single one of those games are with playoff certainties or playoff contenders and playoff teams. So like when they play the Dolphins there in week 17, that's a playoff game. I feel like both teams are going to be on the bubble vying for that final spot, or maybe even the 6th seed as well. And I do think the Steelers are going to be probably the 5th seed at worst, maybe 6th, depending on how the Chargers do. But and that's where, and I just kind of say to my point there, I think the Chargers and Pittsburgh are the 2 teams that are a lock to not win the division but make the playoffs. So it just leaves one more position. So when they play the Titans, when they play the Dolphins, when they play these teams, it's just going to be just such a tough. It's just going to be such a grind for that whole second half of the season.
Yeah, and that to me just kind of is the depiction of the AFC right now. There's just like you look at all 3 of the 4 divisions, excluding the AFC South, but all 4 teams are going to be vying for a playoff berth. And like maybe the Broncos not as much, depending on how big of a turnaround they can make, but like the AFC North is very, very tough, and all 4 of those teams you could make a very reasonable case that they make the playoffs. So it's tough sled now here in the AFC. So but let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on how you think the Ravens are going to do in 2023. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.